What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Sports Degenerate Podcast. This episode, we got NFL Week 6 player props. If you want to see my bets for the game parlays, the spreads, and the parlays, I posted a separate episode. It's already on my page. Go ahead and check it out. So, a quick rundown, if you are new, on how I do player props. For these parlays, I'm only putting down like $5 for each. So we're going to have a lot of parlays based on research that I like, based on trends. So there is going to be a lot. And some of you might be wondering why are there so many? It's just because I shoot my shots based on trends. I only put $5 down on each. The way I think about player props is, let's say I do 20 bets of $5. All we need is like 4, 5, 6 to hit and we profit. And if half hit, 10 hit, that's like a great day. Because player props are so hit and miss, I just like shooting my shots, put $5 down on a whole bunch of parlays based on trends. If you are more interested in putting higher money down, check out my parlays for the games, for the spreads. I put more money down on those. So just a precursor. That's why we have so many parlays here. It's because I'm only putting $5 down on each. But still, if these hit, you're still making $50 a parlay. So it's still 10 times your money. That being said, let's hop into it. I use the Underdog Fantasy app for all of my player prop parlays. If you are a first-time user, download the app, use my code CE2244. I will put it on the screen for the YouTube watchers. CE2244. Letter C, letter E, 2244 for a deposit match up to $1,000. So whatever money you put in up to $1,000, Underdog will give you that money back in free bets. So let's hop in to the player props. All right, so let's start with the quarterback props. So how I do my player parlays is I separate it out by position. The reason I do that is because when I do my research, I'm obviously researching each position separately, right? So it's easier for me to keep track and easier for me to know what I need for my bets. I already know what I'm looking for each parlay when I'm watching the games. So let's start with quarterback completions. So it's going to be a 5-player parlay. First one is Spencer Rattler over 18.5 completions. So the Buccaneers are not that good defensively when it comes to pass defense. They are allowing over 27 completions per game. So that gives us 9 completions of wiggle room from the line. They allow 27. The line is at 18.5. Next, we got Caleb Williams over 22 completions. The Jags are allowing over 25 completions per game. Next, Jaden Daniels over 20.5 completions. The Ravens are allowing also 25 per game. Will Levis over 19 completions. The Colts are allowing over 23 completions per game. And then the last one, Baker Mayfield over 21.5 completions. The Saints are allowing over 23 per game. So when I'm talking about these props, what I mean by wiggle room is this. So for example, this Caleb Williams line is at 22 completions and the Jags are averaging allowing 25 per game, right? So even if the Jags have a better game defensively, we still have 3 completions wiggle room from what they average, right? So that's a pretty good line to bet on because if they're averaging 25 and the line's at 22, that's good. That's a good bet, right? So that's what I mean by wiggle room when I'm talking about these props. So that is the completion props for quarterbacks. Now let's go to passing attempts for quarterbacks. It's going to be almost all of the same quarterbacks I included in the first one. So Spencer Rattler over 29.5 attempts. The Bucks are allowing over 40 attempts per game. Jaden Daniels over 31 pass attempts. The Ravens are allowing over 37 pass attempts per game. Caleb Williams over 33.5. The Jags are allowing over 37 per game as well. Baker Mayfield over 33 pass attempts. The Saints are allowing also over 37 per game. And then this one's different. We got Kyler Murray over 31.5. The Packers are allowing over 35 pass attempts per game. So that is the pass attempts. Now we got quarterback passing yards. So we got Jaden Daniels over 225 passing yards. The Ravens are allowing over 300 per game. 300. And the line is only at 225. Next, Caleb Williams over 244.5. The Jags are allowing over 290 pass attempts per game. Next, we got Will Levis again, over 200 passing yards. This is a really low line. The Colts are allowing over 280, and Will Levis is only at 200. That is a great line. Next, we got Spencer Rattler, over 186, super low. Anytime an NFL quarterback is under 200 passing yards, I take it every single time, no matter what, because it's an NFL quarterback. And the Bucks are allowing over 270 yards per game. And then the last one, we're taking Baker Mayfield again, over 234. The Saints are allowing over 260 per game. And then we have one more quarterback prop. This one's only a 4-team, and it's a little bit different. We got 2 passing yards in it. So the passing yards, Kyler Murray over 211. Really low line because the Packers are allowing over 250 per game. And then we also got CJ Stroud over 237 passing yards. The Patriots are allowing over 250 per game. So this one, not as much wiggle room as the other ones, but I like CJ Stroud as a player. And we still have over 10 yards of wiggle room. I am going to take that. And then the other 2 in this parlay are actually quarterback rushing yards. And we're going to take 2 rookie quarterbacks because rookie quarterbacks usually are more likely to run in their first couple games because they're less likely to go through their second reads, third reads. Usually it's one read. If I don't see anything, I run. So we got Drake May in his first start for the Patriots, over 27.5 rushing yards. The Texans are allowing over 30 rushing yards per game to quarterbacks. And then Spencer Rattler, rookie quarterback for the Saints in his first game, over 19.5 rushing yards. The Bucks are allowing over 30 per game as well. And then the last one we got is quarterback touchdowns. So this one is also based on trends. I didn't just pick random quarterback touchdowns. We have Lamar Jackson over 1.5 passing touchdowns. The Commanders are allowing over 2 passing touchdowns per game. Kirk Cousins also over 1.5 because the Panthers are allowing over 2 per game. Caleb Williams over 1.5. The Jags are allowing exactly 2 passing touchdowns per game. Daniel Jones over 1.5 because the Bengals are allowing exactly 2 per game. Or actually, the Bengals are allowing over 2 per game. I lied. Over 2 per game, even better. And then we're going back to Drake May. A little risky here. We're going to take Drake May to throw a touchdown because the Texans are allowing over 1 passing touchdown per game. So those are the quarterback props. We got pass attempts, pass completions, passing yards, some rushing yards, and then passing touchdowns. Let's move on to running backs next. Before we get into the running back props, for all the podcast listeners, I know I'm giving out a lot of names, a lot of numbers, a lot of trends. I apologize, it might be confusing. Go ahead and watch my YouTube video on my YouTube channel because I have all of the props on the screen while I talk, so it's going to be easier to follow. So go ahead and check it out if you're a little confused. But let's start with running back rushing yards. We got Josh Jacobs over 67.5 yards. Great matchup here. The Cardinals are allowing over 120 rushing yards per game. Bijan Robinson over 66.5 yards. The Panthers are also allowing over 120 yards per game. I think this is the week Bijan bounces back. He hasn't been great lately. I have him in fantasy, so I know, but I think he has a bounce back week. Great matchup. Tony Pollard over 64.5. The Colts are allowing over 110 rushing yards per game. Derrick Henry's line is a little bit higher here. It's at 88.5, but he's hit this almost every single game, and he has a great matchup here. He's playing the Commanders, who are allowing over 110 rushing yards per game. Last one in this parlay is Tyrone Tracy, rookie running back for the Giants, over 55.5. So Tyrone Tracy was the starter last week because Devin Singletary was out, and Tracy had over 100 yards. This week, Singletary is also not playing, so he is the lead back again, and he's playing the Bengals, who are allowing over 110 rushing yards per game. So that's the running back rushing yards. Now let's hop into running back receiving yards. We also got 5 players here. We got DeAndre Swift over 19.5 receiving yards. The Jags are allowing over 50 receiving yards per game to running backs. Alvin Kamara over 32.5, a little bit higher of a line, but the Bucks are also allowing over 50 receiving yards per game to running backs. So good matchup, following the trend. Zach Moss over 16.5. The Giants are allowing over 45 per game. And some of you might want to do Chase Brown. Although Chase Brown looks like the passing downs back, he's a smaller, quicker back. Zach Moss is actually getting more receptions and more receiving yards per game, surprisingly. So take Zach Moss over the receiving yards. Tajay Spears over 14.5 receiving yards. The Colts are allowing over 45 per game. I don't mind if you take Tony Pollard here because I looked, Tajay Spears and him are getting similar receiving numbers, but because we already have Pollard on the rushing yards, I kind of want to change it just in case Pollard gets hurt or something changes because Tajay Spears is getting around the same receiving work as Pollard. So take Tajay Spears over the receiving yards. And then last one is David Montgomery over 8.5 receiving yards. The Cowboys are allowing over 40 receiving yards per game. And also this one, surprisingly, Montgomery has gotten more receptions and receiving yards than Gibbs this year. Really surprising. I was surprised to see that. So I wouldn't really go Gibbs. Obviously, Gibbs is explosive. He could go over as well. But based on trends, Montgomery over 8.5 is a great line. And then, so that's one parlay. We have one other parlay for running back receiving yards. It's a 4-player instead of a 5-player. So we got James Conner over 10.5 receiving yards. The Packers are allowing over 40 per game. Bucky Irving over 19.5. So Rachaad White is out. Bucky Irving is the lead back this game. And the Saints are allowing over 35 per game. Austin Eckler over 20.5. So Brian Robinson is out. So Austin Eckler is the lead back. And we know how good Eckler is as a receiving back. And the Ravens are allowing over 35 per game. And then Breece Hall on Monday night. I usually don't like to include Monday night props with Sunday. I'm just not a huge fan of it. But it was a great line. And I wanted to get a fourth player in this. So Breece Hall over 25.5. It's a great matchup. The Bills are allowing over 60 receiving yards per game to running backs. So those are all of the running back props. We got 1 rushing yards, 2 receiving yards. I don't have any rushing touchdowns. I just didn't really like any of the bets odds-wise. Like, obviously, we could bet Derrick Henry to score a touchdown, but you really weren't getting the really good odds on it. And all the guys with good odds, I didn't really love any of the lines. So no touchdowns for running backs this week. Let's hop into the wide receiver props next. So let's start with wide receiver receptions. So reception props are usually a little bit tricky because there's just so many variables that could happen. Sometimes the number one target gets double coverage the whole game. Sometimes he gets hurt. There's just so many different variables because yards are a little bit easier because a player can bust off a 60-yard play on one catch. So with these receiving props, what I like to target are quarterbacks and teams that I know pepper certain players with targets. I'll talk about what I mean. So first one we got is Chris Olave over 4.5 receptions. So the Bucs are allowing over 16 receptions per game to wide receivers. The reason I picked Olave, I know he hasn't been great with Derek Carr lately, but usually rookie quarterbacks in their first couple of starts give their number one receivers a ton of targets because that's what they're comfortable doing. So that's why I picked Olave. Next, we got DJ Moore over 5.5. The Jags are also allowing over 16 per game, and we've seen all year. DJ Moore is Caleb Williams' preferred target. He looks for him all the time. So yes, there's Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze, but we've seen there's more deference to DJ Moore in the offense. Next is Jalen Tolbert over 4 receptions. The Lions are allowing over 15 per game. So this one I didn't take CeeDee Lamb because what we've seen lately, CeeDee Lamb isn't getting a lot of volume. Tolbert has gone over this 4 receptions 3 games in a row. So this one is one where I don't take the number one receiver. I take the one that Dak has been targeting more in Jalen Tolbert. Next, we got Chris Godwin over 5.5 receptions. The Saints are allowing over 13 per game. The reason I didn't take Mike Evans here is because Mike Evans is historically bad against the Saints because Marshawn Lattimore locks him up most of the time. So I think Chris Godwin is going to get more of the receptions in this game. Next, we got Tank Dell over 4.5 receptions. The Patriots are allowing over 13 per game. So Nico Collins is out. So we could go Stephon Diggs, but Diggs' line was all the way up at 7. That is a lot of receptions. So I'm going to go Tank Dell. hoping that he gets more targets because Nico Collins is out. And then the last one is Diontae Johnson over 5.5 receptions. The Falcons are allowing over 13 per game, and we've seen Andy Dalton pepper Diontae Johnson with targets every single game. So 5-player receptions prop for you. Let's hop into wide receiver yards. So I do have a lot of parlays for wide receiver yards. This is the position where I shoot my shot because there's just so many good receivers in the NFL and so many trends because we know it's a passing league, modern NFL, a lot of passing. So we have, what do we have? 1, 2, 3. We have 4 different receiving yard parlays. So we even if one of these hit, we're making our money back for all 4 of these though. So, we'll see how it goes. So first one, we're going to go DJ Moore over 66.5 receiving yards. The Jags are allowing over 210 receiving yards per game. 2 wide receivers. Over 200 is crazy. Next, we got Terry McLaurin over 59.5. The Ravens are allowing over 190 per game. Crazy. Next, we got Calvin Ridley over 46.5. The Colts are allowing over 180 receiving yards per game. 2 wide receivers. We're going to go back to Chris Olave and go over 46.5 yards. The Bucks are allowing over 175 per game. And then the last one in this parlay, we're doing Jalen Tolbert again, over 45.5. The Lions are allowing over 175 per game. So that is the first wide receiver receiving yards prop. Next, we're going to start with Chris Godwin, over 62.5. The Saints are allowing over 165 per game. And like I said, I think this is a Godwin game, not an Evans game. So this one, a little bit risky here because we're taking the number 3 target on the Cardinals, Michael Wilson, over 37.5. So it's a good matchup. The Packers are allowing over 160 per game. And we've seen Kyler pepper with Wilson with targets and target Wilson more than Marvin Harrison lately. So based on the trends, this is a good line to follow here. Even though I know there's Trey McBride, there's Marvin Harrison, I get it. Based on trends, Wilson is the better play. Next, we got Stephon Diggs over 63.5 yards. So the Patriots are allowing over 160 per game. I don't like Diggs' receptions prop, but I do like his receiving yards. He's gone over 63 3 games in a row. So with no Nico Collins, he should go over again easily. We got Zay Flowers over 58.5. The Commanders are allowing over 150 per game. And Zay Flowers is basically the only person Lamar throws to. Lamar doesn't have a lot of pass attempts, but when he throws it, it's going to Zay Flowers. And then last one in this one is Jaden Reed over 60.5. The Cardinals are allowing over 150 per game. Same thing with Jaden Reed. When Jordan Love throws it, a lot of the time, it's either going to Tucker Kraft, the tight end, or Jaden Reed. And Jaden Reed went over 70 last week. And I think Jaden Reed only had like 3 catches last week, and he went over 70. So he makes big plays. Okay, that was another one. That was another parlay, 5-player parlay. We got another 5-player. So we're going to go Darius Slayton over 50.5 yards. So Malik Neighbors is not playing again. He was out last week, and Slayton had over 100 yards last week. So I'm going to ride it again. And the Giants play the Bengals, who allow over 150 receiving yards per game, 2 wide receivers. Next, we got Darnell Mooney over 52.5. The Panthers are allowing over 145 per game. And we've seen Mooney has gotten more targets than Drake London this year. And Mooney makes bigger plays. Drake London is more like short area, first down getter. Mooney goes downfield more. So good matchup, good route depth. I like Mooney. Next, we're going to take Diontae Johnson over 62.5. The Falcons are allowing over 130 per game. And like I said, Andy Dalton peppers Diontae Johnson with targets. So this one, we're going to take Marvin Harrison instead of Michael Wilson. Like I said, Michael Wilson is the better play, but it's still a good matchup. The Packers are allowing over 160 per game. So we could honestly hit both of these easily. I do prefer Michael Wilson over Marvin Harrison, but Harrison over 54.5 is not a bad play. And then same thing here. Instead of Stephon Diggs, I'm gonna take Tank Dell here. Tank Dell over 52.5. Like I said, the Patriots allow over 160 per game. We can hit Diggs and Dell in the same day. It's easy, especially with no Nico Collins. So I still prefer Diggs, but I don't mind Dell at all. And then the last one is only a 4-player. This one is not based on trends at all. No trends. I'm just doing it based on talent and based on matchup. So these are just stud receivers that I like. So there's no trends to follow it. You don't have to follow it if you don't want to. We got A.J. Brown in his first game back, over 71.5 yards. Cleveland Browns are just not good, so the Eagles are going to have the ball a lot. So that's why I took it. CeeDee Lamb over 88.5. CeeDee hasn't been good lately, but they got to start getting him good eventually. They got to start getting him back on track. Against the Lions, might be the week. Drake London over 67.5. Sorry, Drake London over 67.5. So like I said, I prefer Darnell Mooney just because Mooney has deeper routes, but London still gets a lot of targets. It's against the Panthers, and I like the talent. And then the last one here is T. Higgins over 56.5. I think this is a really low line for T. Higgins, especially against the Giants. So like I said, I just like the talent and I like the matchup. So you don't have to tail that one just because it's just a feel thing based off feels. No trends, just based off feeling. Last one, we have one wide receiver touchdown parlay. So what I based off of this one, there weren't any teams that averaged more than one receiving touchdown per game allowed. There weren't any. There were only, the highest team allowed was like 1.8 receiving touchdowns per game. So there weren't a ton, but I took the 3 with the best matchups touchdown wise. We have Zay Flowers against the Commanders. The Commanders allowed the most. The Panthers allowed the second most, so I'm going to take Drake London. And the Ravens allowed the third most, so I'm going to take Terry McLaurin. So Zay Flowers, 1 touchdown. Drake London, 1 touchdown. And Terry McLaurin, 1 touchdown. So those are the wide receiver props. Next, we got tight end props. So for tight end, we don't have any touchdowns. It's just receptions and yards. Let's start with the receptions. We got Zach Ertz over 3.5. The Ravens are allowing over 6 receptions per game to tight ends. Next, we got Cade Otton, also over 3.5. The Saints are allowing over 5 per game. Trey McBride over 5.5. The Packers are allowing over 5 per game. So this one, there's like no wiggle room here. It's like basically spot on to the trend, but I like the talent. I'm going to take it. Next, we got Kyle Pitts over 3.5. The Panthers are allowing over 5 per game. And then Dalton Schultz over 3.5. So this one isn't really a trend-based one. This is just no Nico Collins. And with no Nico Collins last week, Schultz had over 3.5. So that is the receptions, a 5-player. Let's hop into the tight end yards. It's the same exact players, literally the same exact players. We got Zach Ertz over 29.5. The Ravens are allowing over 70 yards per game to tight ends. Cade Otton over 34.5. The Saints are allowing over 60 per game. Dalton Schultz over 30.5. The Patriots are allowing over 50 per game. Kyle Pitts over 34.5. The Panthers are allowing over 50 per game. And then Trey McBride over 49.5. The Packers are allowing over 50 per game. So both Trey McBride lines are pretty much spot on. So if you're not comfortable with that, don't take it. I'm just taking it because I like the talent. And the line is like basically spot on. So it's a 50-50 chance of hitting, in my opinion. Okay, that is the tight end props. Let's hop in. I forgot to mention the QB touchdown props that are a little bit higher. So these are boosted lines. So if you're on the Underdog app, you can click on a player's projection and make it go higher. So obviously less odds of hitting, but more money if you hit it. So I boosted these 3 quarterbacks 1 touchdown higher than their original line. So it's just 3 quarterbacks all over 2.5 touchdowns. We got Joe Burrow, Kirk Cousins, and Jordan Love. If those 3 quarterbacks throw 3 touchdowns apiece, we hit the parlay. I forgot to mention that in the QBs. So that's the tight end props, the QB prop that I missed. The only thing we have left, if you've been following this channel for a while, I like doing boosted lines based on trends. So what I basically do is get the lines that I already talked about and put them higher. So I put them higher based on what the teams allow. So I'll hop into that next. Let me just pull it up on my computer real quick. 1 second. Okay. So we're going to start with the quarterback yards. Okay. So we got Kyler Murray over 239 yards. So his original line was at like 211. So we're bringing it up to 239 because the Packers allow over 250. Okay. Next one is Caleb Williams over 274.5. His original line was like in the 240s, so we're bringing it up 30 yards. But the Jags are allowing 300 passing yards per game. Okay, over 300 per game. So it's a good trend to follow. And then we got Will Levis over 239. His original line was at 200. We're bringing it up 40 yards basically. But the Colts are allowing over 250. So it's a 3-player boosted parlay. This is going to pay a lot. This is going to pay a lot of money if it hits. So that's a good one. Next, we're going to go into, we got 4 running backs. So we got Josh Jacobs over 89.5. His original line was around 64. So we're bringing it up. But the Cardinals allow over 110. We got Bijan Robinson over 89. His was around like 65 as well. The Panthers are allowing over 120. So a good trend. We got Tony Pollard over 79.5. His original line was same thing, like in the 50s or 60s. But the Colts are allowing over 110. And then we're taking Tyrone Tracy over 69.5. So this one we're only bringing up from 55 to 70 just because he's a rookie. We only saw him play one game. I'm only going to bring it up a little bit. But the Bengals are allowing also over 110. So that's a 4-player parlay. Also will pay a lot of money if it hits. Next, we're going to go to running back receiving yards. So we got DeAndre Swift over 29.5. His original line was around 14, but the Jags are allowing over 50 receiving yards per game to running backs. Next, we got Alvin Kamara over 39.5. So this one, we didn't boost that much. We only boosted it from 32 to 37. 32 to 39, my bad. We boosted it from 32 to 39, but the Bucs are allowing over 50 per game. Next, we got Zach Moss. We also only boosted this one like 5 yards. We boosted it, I think, from 14 to 19. But the Giants are allowing over 45 per game. And then the last one is Tajay Spears. We also only boosted this a little bit from like 14 to 19. But the Colts are allowing over 45. So 4-player running back receiving yards parlay. Also going to pay a lot of money if it hits. Then I did all of the receiving yard parlays boosted. All of them. Every single one of them. So we got DJ Moore over 89.5 because the Jags are allowing over 200 per game. Terry McLaurin also over 89.5 because the Ravens are allowing over 190 per game. Calvin Ridley, we only brought it up to 59.5 just because Calvin Ridley, it's hard to trust. I don't trust him. But the Colts are allowing over 180. Chris Olave over 59.5. Also didn't bring it up too much just because it's a rookie quarterback. Who knows? But the Bucs are allowing over 175. And then Jalen Tolbert, we brought up to 59.5. I didn't go too crazy on him because he's still not the number one on his team. But the Lions are allowing over 175. So that's one. The next one, Chris Godwin over 69.5. We only brought this one up like 7 yards. But because he really hasn't gone over 70. He's had like 75 a couple games. So like he isn't really a big receiving yard guy. So that's why I didn't boost it too much. But the Saints are allowing over 165 per game. Michael Wilson, we brought it up to 49.5. He really only gets like 60 yards per game max. So that's why I didn't boost it up too much. But the Packers are allowing over 160 per game. Stephon Diggs, we boosted all the way up to 79.5 because Stephon Diggs is great. He's great. And the Patriots are allowing over 160. Zay Flowers also to 79.5 because he's gone over this twice already this year. Commanders are allowing over 150. And then last one, Jaden Reed also over 79.5 because he's also hit this multiple times. And the Cardinals are allowing over 150 per game. So that's another boosted parlay. Going to pay a shit ton if it hits. Last wide receiver boosted parlay for you guys. Darius Slayton over 69.5. I only brought it up like 20 yards because it's Darius Slayton. It's Daniel Jones. I don't want to go too crazy on it. But the Bengals are allowing over 150 per game. Darnell Mooney, we put up to 69.5. I was tempted to go to 80, but because there's Drake London, because there's Kyle Pitts, I didn't want to go too crazy. But the Panthers are allowing over 145 per game. Deontay Johnson over 79.5. This one I put all the way up to 80, man, because like I said, Dalton looked for him like crazy, and the Falcons are allowing over 130 per game. And then we went Marvin Harrison up to 69.5 because he is a big play guy. He is a big play receiver, so he can get this on one play. And the Packers are allowing over 160 per game. And then we took Tank Dell all the way up to 70 because he also runs downfield routes. So he could get this in like one or two plays as well. And no Nico Collins. And the Patriots are allowing over 160 per game. And then we're going to end it off with the tight end receiving yard boosted lines. So the only one we didn't take is Trey McBride because, like I mentioned, his line was already a little shaky. So we took Zach Ertz over 39.5 because the Ravens are allowing over 70 per game. Cade Otton over 39.5. The Saints are allowing over 60 per game. Dalton Schultz over 39.5. The Patriots are allowing over 50 per game. And then Kyle Pitts over 39.5. Panthers are allowing over 50 per game. So with these boosted ones, I really only recommend putting $5 down. Please don't put more than $5 because even with $5, you're winning over $200 with each of these. It's like a crazy payout if these hit. We've hit a couple of these this year. The most recent one we hit was the Chiefs-Saints Monday night game. We had Juju boosted because we knew he was going to get more receptions. We had Kelsey boosted because we knew he was going to get more receptions. And we had Juwan Johnson boosted because the Chiefs are terrible against tight ends. So we've hit a couple of these, but please only put $5 down. All the rest of the ones, feel free. It's your money. Like, bet what you want, but these are long shots, man. These are really long shots. That's why I only put $5 down. Please bet responsibly. But that is the Player Prop Show for Week 6. Like I said, if you want to see my game bets, it's a separate episode. But let's profit, man. Let's keep staying hot. We have been on fire lately so far this year. Let's keep it that way. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I love all of you.